Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Sir Cypher here, and I just kind of really wanted to make a video of a game I've been playing a lot that I think that not a lot of people have heard of, and those that have heard of it, I think it seems kind of intimidating to them. It's called Wargame Airland Battle. It's the sequel to a game that came out last year called Wargame European Escalation, and it's basically a Cold War RTS. It's set in the late 1980s, and it's basically the premise is if instead of pursuing, instead of the Soviet sort of empire, the USSR and the Warsaw Pact disintegrating, instead it had a giant war with Nato. And the reason is not really important. I actually forget what the reasoning is, but it really doesn't matter. What it really is an excuse to do is have all these cool Cold War weapons that never actually saw any use for the most part, duke it out, and see who is, what's going to happen. So I'm actually playing in this game. Well, I played in this game. It's already over. But we're the NATO faction, and over here we have the Warsaw Pact troops. This is without any fog of war, but you can see that we have no idea what's going on over there. The point of the game in this game type is destruction. So we have to destroy a certain number of points of enemy units, and they have to destroy a certain number of points of ours. And the number of points a unit is worth is equal to its cost. So cheaper units like these helicopters, these like Vietnam era helicopters full of cheap Canadian infantry aren't worth that many points. I think they're worth 20, whereas something like my M1 Abrams battle tank over here is worth like 130. So obviously an Abrams is kind of better in most situations than a helicopter full of cheap Canadian infantry, but so that's why it costs a lot more. It's worth a lot more points if you kill it. How you get those points to call in units, besides the stuff we get at the beginning, is you have a command vehicle in these sort of outlined zones. And if you have a stationary command vehicle, like for example this APC, you get reinforcement points for that zone. And also, if the zone has an arrow on it, you can call in troops from that area. Now another thing that makes this game kind of unique, you can see the scale. It's pretty crazy. That there's a lot going on. Engagement ranges are also really, really big, so stuff can shoot from really far away. But what makes this game kind of cool is that you don't have a set army. Before the game, you make what's called a deck, which is you have a certain number of slots, and you pick different things to fill those slots. So, for example, for an American deck, you might take for your tanks, you might take M1 Abrams, and you might take like Pattons, you might take whatever. You might take infantry and Humvees, you might take them in helicopters, and those all fill up slots, and you only have a limited number to work with. Additionally, you can sort of impose restrictions on your deck. Like for example, your deck will only contain things that were made before 1980. Which means you can't take sort of the newer, higher tech units, but you can take more of the lower tech units. So you see here my ally with all his Canadian infantry. I think he wanted to rush into this forest and land his troops there before the enemy could stop him, but instead he flies into a wall of anti-air, and you can see here the enemy, the Pact's points are going to go up pretty sharply. From all these helicopters that are getting shot down, but really it looks really bad, but these are like really cheap. These are like really cheap helicopters, so it's not the end of the world. And he sort of tries to avenge them with a flight of Skyhawks, which again, because he has I think he's playing with a deck that is pre-1975, so he can have lots and lots of cheap units in it. And so these Skyhawks, which are really inexpensive, are coming here to drop bombs on everything. Over here on the other side of the map, my ally and I have kind of a little bit of a different strategy. We have like fewer, more expensive units. I landed a bunch of troops into these forests. We have Stingers, which are anti-air troops. I sent a few over from Scout. We have Marines, which are just kind of standard infantry. Rangers are scouts. And you can see here the enemy is kind of making a big push in this direction. I also landed troops over here in this forest, along with a tank, because I want to eventually take this sector. So you can see here that these Hinds came up, these Russian attack helicopters, and just totally destroyed my Rangers. But then they're flying into my Stingers, and my allies' Flak Panzers back here, and his Rolands, which are going to basically just blast the crap out of them. And I'm assuming kill both of them. So a big important part of this game is actually Recon, which I think is interesting. And it's not like most games where units are stealthed or they're not, or you have vision or you're not. There's no indicator of where your vision spreads to. You can see right here, he's doing a big assault down this road. Units move faster on roads. His command vehicle just got pegged by a rocket from my tank over here. Units move faster on roads, even though there's no cover, and also they use less fuel. And units need fuel to move in this game, so if you're doing a long-range assault and you want to get there quickly and efficiently, you want to go on a road. But I don't think he realized I had all these troops in this forest, because how would he know? He still actually can't see any of my infantry. The only thing he can see here is this tank. So he has all these troops over here. He also, I don't think, realizes that we have so many troops camped out on a hotel here. So I think he thinks that he is safe from this flank. But little does he realize that my ally and I are coming here to stop this attack. He's sending some M60 starships over here. These traces are coming from autocannon tanks. And then they try and land more helicopter reinforcements, but again, I have missiles in the tree line, and they are going to shoot those down. And then also, there's artillery coming from my base, and you can see here that this is putting us way ahead in the points, because his guys are basically surrounded. And then my Abrams gets on the scene here to basically clean up house. This is the M1A1 Abrams. One of the things also in decks is that if you restrict yourself to a single nation, you can take the more advanced and prototype units for that nation. Around the time period of this game, I don't think the M1A1 was in normal production, but if you pick an all-American deck, you can actually take some of them. Over here, the enemy has managed to take this point here at Charlie, which gives them a reinforcement zone right here, like really close to our side of our line here. But my ally has parked a bunch of tanks and infantry in this forest, so anything that spawns is going to try and drive along this road and just going to get blown up. These are French tanks actually right here. They're actually kind of cool. Because they have on their roof, they have these anti-tank missiles. So they're actually pretty cheap, and they have a crappy main gun, but they have these 4 anti-tank missiles on the roof that will just wreck most tanks. So another thing here that is really cool about this game is, along with fuel, vehicles only have a certain amount of ammunition for their guns. And you can see here the Chaparral is an anti-missile, is it anti-air defense here that shoots infrared-seeking missiles, and it only has 4, and it's all out. That's this missile icon. So I'm landing a supply Chinook here, which will resupply all these units and give them more weapons, or more ammunition. An interesting part of this game is, one of the balancing factors is a lot of the more effective weapon systems are very limited on ammunition. For example, this MBT-70 here, which was the one that blew up like the first 4 things that came down this road, it actually shoots out of its gun, out of its cannon, it shoots anti-tank missiles. But obviously, I mean, missiles are pretty big, so it can only actually carry 4. And then it has to just shoot normal rounds, which aren't effective against tanks. So its missiles are way longer range than most tank guns, and it does a lot of damage, but it only has 4. Which makes it run out of ammo pretty quickly, as opposed to, say, the Abrams, which its gun has roughly about the same effectiveness, because it's way more expensive, but it has 25 rounds that it can shoot through enemy tanks like they are made of butter. Now, as you can see here, it looks like there's nothing going on, but obviously the enemy has all sorts of shenanigans. Here's actually some Soviet anti-air units. These are Bucks. These are radar-guided missiles, which means they're the more sort of like longer-range heavy missiles. And again, you see they only have 4. So, oh, actually, I didn't. Oh, there's 8 because there's 2 of them. They only have 4, which means that they only have 4 each. So once they shoot all 4, they're done, and they need to be resupplied. As opposed to something like these Rolands here, which are anti-tank or anti-air units, and they each carry 10 missiles. So they're not as powerful as a Buck over here, but they can carry a lot more missiles, and that's one of the balancing factors in this game. Another thing that's kind of interesting, which you might see, is that these are actually, a side note, these are the American radar, like long-range radar-guided missile trucks. They shoot Hawks. This one you can see it only has 2 left because it shot 1. Radar-guided missiles are sort of the longer-range heavy units, but once they lock onto a target, they can be attacked by specialist airplanes that detect enemy radar and shoot missiles back. So even though these are probably like the most effective types of anti-air artillery, there's special planes called SEAD planes that just fly around and wait for a missile to lock onto them, and when that happens, they just shoot their own missile back and blow up whatever anti-air thing it is. There's all sorts of other anti-air stuff that doesn't use radar. For example, I think these I don't know if they're over here still, but I think these Flag Panzers don't have radar. Oh yeah, I guess they do. What doesn't have radar? These don't. Chaparrals don't have radar. They're just heat sinking. And Stinger squads, they don't have radar. They're just heat sinking as well. So they can't be targeted by anti-radar stuff. So you see my allies like we should attack here. So my first squad of Rangers that went here died. So I landed another one in a helicopter right here, so they can go creep up on here and see what's going on in this town. And then I landed another one by helicopter way back here because I didn't want the helicopter to get shot down. And also I didn't want the enemy to see my Rangers moving into this forest. Recon units are kind of, well, shoot, there's like a big air slot here. Recon units are kind of interesting in this game because there's different types and they're useful for different things. You have recon infantry, which are the least mobile, obviously, because they have to walk everywhere unless they're in a helicopter. But once they're in cover, they're really hard to spot. So they're really good for providing vision without letting the enemy see you in return. Then there's other kinds of... So speaking of anti-air, this MiG-29 flies over all our anti-air defenses and gets toasted basically by these Flak Panzers and all these anti-air missiles because it is dumb. It is dumb for doing that, and it gets blasted. But yeah, then there's also recon choppers, like this Mi-2 here, which have probably the longest range of sight because they're elevated, so they can see over a lot of terrain. But they're also the easiest for the enemy to spot in return. You see here that we know that it's there, even though it's kind of far away. But at the same time, they don't realize, for example, that this guy has a... They don't realize, for example, that this guy has a stealth recon vehicle in these bushes because they can't see it. So recon vehicles are kind of like a cross between infantry and because they're fat, they're hard to see in forest, but they're also fast and they can relocate quickly. See right now here, the enemy has all of these attack helicopters here. Attack helicopters are pretty good for long-range standoff combat because they outrange most ground vehicles. And they even, a lot of times, can outrange the anti-air vehicles. But it looks like this guy, he snuck up another Roland that should be able to shoot them down. I sent myself, I sent a an Eagle over here to try and stop it. And this is actually a Raven, which I sent in with the Eagle to try and destroy their anti-air. The Raven is a SEAD plane. Like I said earlier, it waits for radar-guided A to lock onto it, and then it shoots back. But after my F-15 died, I decided that I should send in something that's just not going to get shot down by A instead, and I sent in a Nighthawk, which is a stealth fighter, to drop a big bomb on the city, and I guess it killed a bunch of guys. Over here, the enemy is trying to push back on this ridgeline because they really want this reinforcement point. Because otherwise they have to call in troops all the way over here at Kilo and drive down this long road, or they have to call it Juliet and drive down this long road. So they want to really take this area back, but my ally is pretty, I think, convinced on not letting them have it. So, let's see right here. He's just sending more and more APCs worth of infantry into the woods to stop the enemy, and he's got tanks here, and he's really trying to stop them, because if they get this road, then they can just call in stuff really close to our base and possibly just overwhelm us. At the same time, we're just continuing to just like shell this town. I've got artillery back here next to my forward operating base, which is it gives supply just like a supply truck, but it's really big. It has a lot of supplies. America, yeah, it has a lot of supplies, so you can even fly your other supply vehicles back when they run out to the FOB, and they can grab more supplies and resupply our units. So the enemy is sending a big push. This guy's even sending in his APCs that the infantry have already dismounted from, just so there's more bodies in this forest to hopefully stop this assault. But yeah, the enemy's got a lot of stuff here. But now he pulls up his S tanks, which are, I think they're Swedish, and they're kind of interesting. They're these turretless. They're these turretless tanks, and they're kind of getting flanked here and murdered. But they're these low-profile defensive tanks that I think they're Swedish, designed to defend against the Warsaw Pact. So the enemy, it looked like they maybe were going to get it as this BMPT gets taken out by an anti-tank missile. But they get pushed back here. At the same time, we decided that we need to move in more over here and take Mike. And the interesting thing about this game is, like, you don't take territory necessarily to take territory, but you look at it and you go, can I, like, take this town while making him expend more casualties defending it? Then I'm going to expend, trying to take it. And I think we decided that we can. We don't actually know all that the enemy has in the town, but we don't think it's that much, and we think that we can take it. So we know there's anti-air stuff in here because we can see it, and we're just trying to kill it, because once the anti-air is dead, we can just have our planes come in and just drop bombs on the town all day. And if the enemy keeps sending infantry to defend the town, they're just going to get bombs dropped on them. Also, unfortunately for him, he doesn't have any troops, for example, in these woods, which would be a perfect place, because then as our troops would be trying to enter the town, they'd be taking fire from the town, and they'd be taking fire from these bushes and these bushes here. But he doesn't, so I think we decide we can move in here. This smoke here is he has mortars right here, which are firing smoke rounds to provide concealment. So that the enemy can't shoot at us as we're coming into the town. Over here, I have a different plan. I have a pair of APCs full of assault engineers, which have napalm rockets, and then I have a pair of flamethrower tanks. and we all kind of move in there. Over here, after this push got destroyed, I don't think the enemy has that much left. So here we have here more of these cheap Canadian helicopters that got murdered at the beginning, offloading their cheap Canadian infantry to clear out this forest. But as you can see here, we're pretty close to winning. The enemy doesn't have that much stuff left, but they do, as you can see, we can't actually see the AA, but we can see its tracers coming up into the air to kill all of our guys. I don't think I mentioned it yet, but one of the coolest parts of this game is how the urban combat works. You don't do things like enter individual houses or anything like that. You tell your infantry, I just dropped the bomb on their AA. You just tell your infantry to assault a certain block. You see here they kind of get outlined when I mouse over it, and some of these are outlined in blue. And when you tell your infantry to go to that block, they'll immediately find houses and such to occupy, and they'll fight any enemies in there. And then, so you don't have to like tell your units to go in and out of houses. As soon as you tell your units to go into a block of houses, they'll automatically find like a good house to hole up in and shoot at the enemy from. So we managed to clear this town. I think there's some couple APCs or something over here, but I think my flamethrower tank just sets it on fire. And as you can see here, the whole block basically goes up in smoke. That's the danger of city fighting, though, is if your infantry are in houses and somebody napalms them or flamethrowers them, they're all going to die. So that's pretty much it. We're just kind of mopping up now because we've broken the back of the enemy resistance. I think we can kind of tell they don't really have a plan B now. This whole defensive line is just toast, and there isn't really anything stopping us from just driving into our base. He's calling in a pair of T-80Us here, which are a heavy Russian tank, but it's not really going to stop anything. Then over here we have even more Skyhawks than at the beginning, which kill a command vehicle and end the game. So hopefully, I mean, I'm bad at this game, and these guys we were playing weren't that super great, but hopefully you watched this and you thought, like, this is an interesting game. It looks cool, and maybe you should check it out, because, yeah, I feel like not a lot of people are playing it, and hopefully more people will, and it'll be fun. So, thank you for watching, and have a nice day.